My name is Maribel, and I'm going to be your teacher for today. So today we're going to be building one of the most beautiful animals, in my opinion, in the water. It's a kind of fish. They have very bright golden colored scales, and they're very pretty to look at. Today we're going to be building a goldfish. So what are some things you guys know about goldfishes? They have these long, transparent fins, a very beautiful golden color. And what about their eyes? What do you know about their eyes? Yeah, they're these big, round, bulging eyes. They kind of stick out of their head. And what about the shape of their mouth? They make an O shape. Kind of if you were to suck in your cheeks, make an O shape to get the bubbles flowing out. And they have these beautiful golden colored scales, which is why we call them goldfish. They're very shiny, they catch your eye. And where do goldfishes live usually? You see them a lot in aquariums, and of course in ponds, which is where they're cultivated. So what are some different kinds of goldfishes? We have the typical red goldfish, which are usually covered in bright gold or red colored scales. What about the middle picture? What do you notice about the color of the goldfish? They're a bright yellow and white scales, and they have those bulging eyes that are a red color. So we have the red and white pearl scaled goldfish, which we see in the first two pictures. We have the jade rabbit fish, which has these bright yellow and white colored fins. And the red pearl fish. What do you know about the red pearl fish? We see in the picture they have these bright red colored scales. So they're very colorful, they're very bright colored scales, and we notice that they have those bulging eyes all the time and these transparent fins. So where does a goldfish live? Goldfishes, they live in water with really high temperatures. They don't like to live in cold water, they love hot temperature. So you see goldfishes in streams, in ponds. They like to stay away from the ocean because the ocean has very cold water. And what about what goldfishes like to eat? Can you take a guess about what goldfishes love to eat? They love to eat different things. So some of the natural foods that they like are things like worms and baby shrimp. But we also know that they like some man-made fish bait as well. Things like bean cake, flour dough, rice bran. Foods that we eat as well are some foods that goldfish love to eat. So they love worms, they love baby little tiny shrimp, and they also like bean flour, flour dough, and rice bran. So they eat a bunch of different things. And the life cycle of a goldfish, does anyone know how a goldfish might start off in the world? They begin as these little tiny eggs. But when they hatch from their eggs, they don't become full adult grown goldfish. If you see in the diagram, once they hatch from the eggs, they turn into what we call a fry. A fry is kind of this little tadpole, and they look like these little snakes kind of swimming around in the ocean. Their fins are not golden colored, and they're usually of a silver or white gray colored fish. So you can see in the picture how small they are. And once a fry has grown up, they become an adult goldfish. So that's when we get our bright red scales, and you see their colors really come about after they develop into an adult goldfish. So what do you think a goldfish might do if they're feeling really scared, if they feel their lives are in danger and they want to hide away from a bigger fish, what are some things that a goldfish might do? If they're in a big group of goldfishes, they're going to scatter around and swim far away. But if they're on their own, goldfishes, they swim up, down, vertical. They like to get away from danger really quickly, so they're going to swim really fast away from whatever it is they're scared about. We also see that goldfishes, when they feel if they're in danger, they'll sink to the bottom of the water or the aquaria to escape anything that might be harming them. So looking at the different parts of a goldfish, what do we know about the head of a goldfish? What are some characteristics that stand out to you? They have these big, bulging eyes that stick out of their head, and their mouths, they make an O shape in order to blow out the bubbles in the water. And what about their bodies? What do we know about a goldfish's body? Notice their fins are a bright red or yellow golden scales, and they're filled with them all over their body. So they're very bright and colorful creatures. And what about their tails? What do you notice about their tails? That's right, they're these long, transparent, flowing tails that actually make up almost half of the entire body of the fish. So if you were a goldfish, what do you think might be some things that might scare you living in a pond or an ocean? Goldfishes actually really hate ultrasound. Have you guys heard of ultrasound before? Ultrasound are noises with very high frequencies. So those are type of noises that you and me wouldn't be able to hear. But a goldfish can actually hear ultrasound, and it's so high pitched that it actually bothers them and can scare goldfishes away. So they don't like ultrasound. They also don't like the sudden change of temperature in the water. Remember we talked about how goldfishes love hot water? If the water changes from hot to cold, they're not going to be happy. They love to be warm, and they're not going to like cold or freezing water temperatures. So they don't like ultrasound, they don't like change in temperature, and they also need a certain amount of oxygen. Goldfishes live in oxygenated water, so if there's not enough oxygen in the water for them, then they're also not going to be happy. So looking at our model today, what are some similarities between what we'll be building today and an actual goldfish that you might see outside in the pond? The model we're building today is definitely a lot bigger. And the goldfishes we see in the wild, they could be red, but we also know that goldfishes can be bright yellow, they can have white fin colors. So the color of our goldfish is going to be red, but in the wild, there are different types of goldfishes. But the similarities between our model and a real goldfish, we're going to make sure that we have those bulging eyes. We're going to give our fish the fins and make sure that we have the gold and red scales that we talked about earlier. And we're going to give it its O-shaped mouth. So before we begin, make sure you have all your pieces prepared in front of you already. So when we start with the build, it's going to be a lot quicker to follow along. So to begin, take that 2x8 brick, that's the longest brick that you have, and you're going to take that square 2x2 red brick, and you're going to put that right in the left of that 2x8 brick. And now you're going to want to take a yellow block with an eye on it, And guess what part of the fish that's going to be? Those are those big bulging eyes that we learned about earlier. So put that right in the middle of your 2x8 block. And taking another 2x2 red piece, you're going to put that square right next to it. So you should have something looking just like this. Now taking your yellow 2x2 pieces, you're going to start creating a pyramid shape. And this is going to create that mouth of the fish. So putting 2 right on top and 1 at the bottom, we see that we have the eyes of our goldfish as well as the front end. And so we're going to have a golden bright head. And now we're going to create the rest of the body of the goldfish. So to do that, just take a 2x4 red block, put that right under your 2x8. So you're just extending the body. Now taking a 2x4 block, put that right in the center, and take a 2x2 block, put it right next to it. So we see that they're at the same height on both the left and the right. And we're going to slowly create that same shape on the other end of the goldfish. So take your 2x4 block. You're going to put that right in the middle of the pieces we just put on. And now we're going to create that long tail that we saw. So to do that, take a 2x2 red block, put that right in the middle of the 2x4. You see we're creating these stairs leading down to the tail. Take a 2x2 red block and put that right under to create the tail of the goldfish. And that completes our model. So we notice that we have the bulging big eyes of the goldfish. We made sure to have the red and yellow scales. And we have the long tail and the O-shaped mouth at the front. So today we reviewed the parts of a goldfish, what kind of characteristics their body have, how they have transparent fins. And you remember what goldfish love to eat? They love worms, and they love little shrimp. They also like to eat things that we as humans eat as well. Things like bean flour, rice cakes, all food that goldfishes love to eat. And they live in ponds and water, usually places with very high temperatures. Goldfish hate to live in cold water. And when goldfish are scared or they feel like they're in danger, they'll either sink to the bottom of the pond or aquaria, or they'll swim away with their friends if they're in a big group of goldfish. So once you're done with your model, feel free to decorate it. You can give it a bigger tail. You can make it a bigger fish by adding more blocks in the middle and then creating those stairs leading down to the tail and leading down to the tip of the goldfish's head. And make it different colors. We learned that goldfish, they can be red, they can be yellow, but they can also be white and yellow. So feel free to change it up, make a whole school of goldfish. And once you're done with your build, put all your pieces away, clean up. And I will see you for the next lesson. Bye, everyone.